Good morning, students. Welcome to online English classes, KV Sundargarh, Odisha. Let me know from you whether you love to listen to stories. Yes, every one of us loves to listen to stories. So, what are the characteristics of stories that makes stories interesting? Yes, they are fanciful, imaginary elements there, fictitious, animal talks are there, fairies are there, and demon too. And stories are educative. Children can draw morals from stories. Do you know what a wizard is? Yes, a kind of magician who can change things at singular utterance of his spells. So today we'll be reading such a chapter from our supplementary book written by John Updike, was born on June 5th, 1959, and the title is Should Wizard Hit Mommy? So let's see what is in the story. And this is John Updike's picture collected from internet. He was born in the USA, and died in the year 2009 at the age of 76. So what is this chapter about? So let's see what is in the story. Before you read, let's read the pre-reading. Hence, here is a story about the worldview of a little child and the difficult moral questions she raises during the story session with her father. So this is the theme of the story when we see prima facie or in our first reading. We get this impression from this story, but there are some deep hidden meanings in the story which we will discuss while reading the lesson. So basically, whenever there is a story being narrated, then a child must be there and a senior member of the family, particularly grandfathers, grandmothers, and sometimes if grandfather and mother are not available, parents do tell such stories. And here also in the story, it has become customary to tell a story by a father whose name was Jack to his daughter whose name was Joe. So let's read. In the evenings and for Saturday naps, like today's, Jack told his daughter Joe a story out of his head. So it had become customary. And the day was Saturday. This custom began when she was 2, was itself now nearly 2 years old. So now Joe has become 4 years old, and this practice started at the age of 2. And his head felt empty. Yes, definitely he has been telling stories for 2 years continually. So it is very difficult to create such stories every day. So now let's read. Each new story was a slight variation of a basic tale. So what did he do? He actually varied the same story a little, and the basic structure of the story was the same. A small creature usually named Roger, that is Roger Fish, or Roger Squirrel, or Roger Chipmunk. So you can see in the slide, Jack to the right and Joe to his side. And the basic structure of the story was that there was Roger, and Roger, then a creature, maybe a fish, a squirrel, a chipmunk, or any other creature, and all had some problems. All had some problems. And they went with the problem to the wise old owl. There was a wise old owl who referred everyone or advised everyone having problem to go to a wizard. And that was common in every story. And the wizard performed a magic spell that solved the problem, demanding in payment a number of pennies greater than the number that Roger creature had. So Roger creature, any creature on that particular day, had lesser money than the demand of the wizard, but in the same breath directing the animal to a place where the extra pennies could be found. But that was not a problem, because the wizard himself knew where extra penny could be found, and he in the same breath directed those creatures to collect the money and pay them the fee. The Roger was so happy, he played many games with other creatures, and then the Roger creature became happy, came back from the wizard because his problem was solved, and then he played with his friends, other creatures, and went home to his mother just in time to hear the train whistle that brought his daddy home from Boston. So from animal story, the story shifts to real world, because the father of that creature came by train from Boston with whistling. So let's see what happened then. The train whistle that brought his daddy home from Boston Jack described their supper. So then Jack describes, after his father reached their home, a supper is arranged, and after the supper, the story was over. Working his way through this scheme was especially fatiguing on Saturday, because Joe never fell asleep in naps anymore, and knowing this made the ride seem futile. So these basic story with a little variation, no more interested Joe, and Jack found it very difficult to put his daughter Joe to sleep, particularly on Saturday, because Saturday is the weekend day there. So during daytime he had to tell a story for a nap, and in the evening also. So he was actually struggling to put her asleep, because she has already grown up now, and she is at the age of 4, and she had started analyzing the story, the elements, the truth elements, everything. And in our next paragraph we will know that she had started questioning on the authenticity of the characters and the plot of the stories. The little girl, not so little anymore, the bombs her feet made under her covers were halfway down the bed, that big double bed that they let her be in for naps when she was sick. So when measure the height of the daughter Joe, she wasn't anymore a child, a baby. She had reached half the bed. That means she had become much taller, had last night arranged herself, and from the way her fat face deep in the pillow shone in the sunlight shifting through the drawn shades. So it was a weekend day, Saturday, and daytime, and the father is telling her, narrating her a story so that she takes a nap quickly so that he could do other household works. We'll see what kind of work was going on. It did not seem fantastic that so magic would occur and she would take her nap like an infant of 2. Her brother Bobby was 2 and already asleep with his bottle. Jack asked, "Who shall the story be about today?" So Jack already knew that the story would not be sufficient to put her to sleep or help her to go a nap, but still he didn't give up narrating the story, expecting that Joe will take a nap. And Jack had another baby whose name was Bobby. So you get the family picture like this. We have not been introduced to Claire, the mother of these babies and wife of Jack. We know that Jack was the father and he has been telling stories to Joe, and a 2 years baby Bobby is asleep on the bed, and we will be introduced to Claire. Roger. So when he asked what would be the creature that day, then Joe thinks a little, Roger, and then thinks of which animal after Roger. Joe squeezed her eyes shut and smiled to be thinking she was thinking. Her eyes opened. Her mother's blue eyes resembled her mother's blue eyes. Then closed her eyes for a little, then opened it and said, "Skunk." So it was to be Roger skunk that day. So let me show you what Roger skunk is. It is any of several bushy-tailed carnivores of the New World, about the size of a house cat. It has glossy black fur, usually with white strips or spots down the back, and ejects a foul-smelling musky liquid when disturbed or frightened. And that was the specialty of skunk. It released a foul-smelling liquid, so it smelled very bad, and that's why nobody liked skunk. A new animal. They must talk about skunks at nursery school. Having a press hero momentarily stirred Jack to creative enthusiasm. So it was beyond Jack's imagination that such a creature would be chosen by Joe for that, and he was full of enthusiasm. And he said, "All right," he said, "once upon a time in the deep, stark woods, there was a tiny little creature by the name of Roger Skunk, and he smelled very bad, and this is his problem, smelling." So he narrated the story in the typical way he had been telling by then for 2 years. Yes, Joe said, "He smelled so bad that none of the other little woodland creatures would play with him." Joe looked him solemnly seriously. That means she hadn't foreseen this. She had chosen Roger Skunk because she wanted to know more about skunk, but she hadn't thought about this problem that nobody wanted to play with him. Whenever he would go out to play, Jack continued with the jest, remembering certain humiliations of his own childhood. This is an important line, and these kind of lines adds to the a critical angle of this story. This is not just a narration of a story by a father to a daughter. There is a different angle, some personal life, effect of personal life, some relationship in the family, and some nostalgic views are embedded in the story. And Jack had felt such humiliation in his childhood, and that's why he wanted to tell those humiliations in the form of the story. Okay, so read next. All of the other tiny animals would cry, "Oh, oh, here comes Roger's stinky skunk," and they would run away, and Roger's skunk would stand there all alone, and two little round tears would fall from his eyes. So Roger's skunk became sad and wept. The corner of Joe's mouth drooped down and her lower lip bent forward as he traced with a forefinger along the side of her nose the course of one of Roger's skunk's tears. So, with the description of Roger's skunk becoming sad, the effect is felt in Joe also. She also could trace that tears flow down automatically from her eyes. So the story had already started affecting Joe. "Won't he see the owl?" she asked in a high and faintly roughened voice. So she was in a hurry and didn't like to remain the problem in the skunk so long. So she wanted the solution very quickly, and that's why she asked, "Won't he see the owl?" Sitting on the bed beside her, Jack felt the cover stalk as her leg twitched tensely. So she was tense and wanted the problem to be solved as soon as possible. He was pleased. This one is important. Why was he pleased? Because though his daughter was weeping and sad, Jack was pleased because Jack actually wanted to pass on some moral to this little girl. He wanted that the story or the moral or value of the story should forge the little girl's mind. And it was affecting. He knew that the story had started affecting. That's why he was happy. He was telling her something true, something she must know, and this is the proof. He wants that the little girl must know all these things. Actually, he was bringing up her properly, educating her properly, inculcating some values on her, and he wanted that she should know the truth of life. Now, this one. And had no wish to hurry on. But downstairs a chair scraped, and he realized he must get down to help Claire paint the living room woodwork. Now we are introduced to the wife of Jack, whose name was Claire, and she was doing some painting works downstairs. From this description, we know that Jack actually wanted the story to go slowly, move slowly, but he had other tasks. His wife was doing some works downstairs. That's why he was compelled to narrate the story at a faster pace. So he continues, "Well, He walked along very sadly and came to a very big tree, and in the tip top of the tree was an enormous wise old owl. Good, Joe says. Mr. Owl, Roger Skunk said, all the other little animals run away from me because I smell so bad. So you do, the owl said. Very, very bad. What can I do? Roger Skunk said, and he cried very hard. The wizard, the wizard, Joe shouted. Joe actually wanted the problem to be solved very quickly. That's why she prompts very quickly and sat right up. And Joe was thrilled. He sat on the bed, and a little golden book spilled from the bed. Golden book is a children's story book, series of children's story books. So she had started behaving in a very unusual manner. So Daddy is disturbed. Jack is now Joe. Daddy is telling the story. Do you want to tell Daddy the story? So this is a little golden book. Daddy. The story? No, you me. Then she says, no, you tell me, Papa. I won't disturb. Then lie down and be sleepy. Her head relapsed onto the pillow and she said, out of your head. Well, the owl thought and thought. At last he said, why don't you go see the wizard? Daddy, she again interrupts. What? Are the magic spells real? So the little girl, Joe, was disturbed, and that's why she was asking distractive questions. She was actually thinking a lot about the skunk. She wanted the problem to be solved properly. So she is asking in advance whether the spell will work or not. This was a new phase, just this last month, a reality phase. When he told her spiders eat bugs, she turned to her mother and asked, do they really? So Joe had reached a phase of her life when she had started questioning, she had started reasoning, and this was a new observation from the past 1 month. And when she was told about various things in the story, she started questioning, do they really? And when Claire told her God was in the sky and all around them, she turned to her father and insisted with a sly yet eager smile, is he really? Okay, so she had started questioning. They are real in stories, Jack answered coldly. Okay, he answered rudely. She had made him miss a beat in the narrative. He answered coldly in a rude manner because she was interrupting his father again and again. Then he continues. The owl said, go through the dark woods, under the apple trees, into the swamp, over the creek. What is the creek? Then again she is questioning. So these kind of things are going on. We will see what happens next, whether the skunk meets the wizard, whether the problem is solved, and what happens to the skunk and how the problem was solved in our next class. So thank you for today. I am assigning some comprehension check questions now. You kindly attempt the questions and send me back. But yes, do read the paragraphs yourself silently before attempting the questions. Thank you.